I remembered, I don't know what triggered it, but I remembered some beads that I had bought that I thought would make a really nice necklace. And we had moved, and I didn't know where anything was. So I searched through all of the boxes that I hadn't unpacked yet, and I found it. And I started with the beads that I had bought before and just couldn't stop. It just hooked me. And that was about 2 years ago. And I've just been going ever since. And I've now made about 1,000 pieces.
Wow. Welcome everyone to another episode of F5 Collective presents Women in Business. Today we have Debbie Slavkin and Made by Mimi Designs, jewelry maker, person extraordinaire, and really looking forward to the conversation today because we are going to talk about creativity as a form of healing. And I really think it's an important topic, and I'm really looking forward to us sharing that with you. And with that, Debbie, welcome.
Thanks,
to
Linda.
The podcast.
It's great to be here.
I'm so happy to have you
exciting.
here. Yeah, this is very cool. So why don't you share a little bit about your background, where you came from, where you grew up and how you got here.
Wow, that's a really long story. I grew up in Phoenix.
Mm-hmm.
I was born actually in upstate New York, but I grew up in Phoenix and came here very shortly after I graduated from high school to go to college. And I like to say that my family couldn't handle being without me, so they followed.
Probably true.
Yeah. So, and since I came here, I went to USC, and after I started, I never saw them because I was on campus all the time, except when I needed to do my laundry. I majored in broadcast journalism. And I worked in journalism for a couple years. And in fact, that's where we met.
Yeah.
And this was more than 5 years ago.
Yeah, a little bit more.
And when the show I was working on was canceled, I ended up staying on the corporate level, producing sales videos and presentations for the different conventions that they have for selling syndicated TV shows. And through that, I got into international distribution. So for about 15 years, I was selling nonfiction and documentary program overseas, mostly in Asia. And I visited there several times. And through a series of karmic events, I ended up getting out of that business. I was burned out. And I worked at the Television Academy for about 7 years, producing the college Emmys and other live events and running other special projects and programs. And then, unfortunately, I was in a bad car accident that resulted in a traumatic brain injury and some problems with my back and neck. And I had to stop working. And that was almost 13 years ago.
Wow.
And it took at least 6 or 7 years to recover from the major trauma of the brain injury, which had resulted in intractable migraines and many visits to the ER to break them, several admissions into the hospital when they wouldn't break. I couldn't drive because I had so much PTSD. And the problem with that is when you suffer a traumatic brain injury and you don't have any other injuries that are visible, people don't believe that there's really anything wrong with you.
Yeah.
So it was a real struggle getting past that. And it's really only been in the last few years that I've started to feel more like the me who I was before, which will never come back because my executive functioning and cognitive skills have suffered.
Yeah.
People who meet me now would have no idea, but I know what's missing.
Yeah.
And that's the hard part.
Yeah. Well, I know that we've chatted about this before, but you've been making jewelry now.
Yeah.
And what led to the jewelry making?
There's a community college here that offers free classes to people 55 plus, and they're free. And I just was kind of looking at that to see what might be interesting. And there was a jewelry making class, which I had never had any interest in before, but I thought, why not? And the interesting thing about that, I really enjoyed it, but because of my brain injury and because I'm ambidextrous, I had a really hard time doing the knots and things that she was teaching because she was teaching it right-handed. And my dominant side is my left hand. And like it was like my brain crossed and I couldn't get the knots ever to go the right way. And it got really frustrating. So I stopped doing that and I just left it. And then a couple years later, my sister-in-law told me about a friend of hers who made jewelry but had to stop doing it because she had her own health challenges. So I just said, this seems like the right time. And I bought a couple $100 worth of beads from her and again started making jewelry and wasn't really getting anywhere with it. It was before you could make your own website, or at least as far as I knew, before you could make your own website. And then a couple years ago, I remembered, I don't know what triggered it, but I remembered some beads that I had bought that I thought would make a really nice necklace. And we had moved, and I didn't know where anything was. So I searched through all of the boxes that I hadn't unpacked yet, and I found it. And I started with the beads that I had bought before and just couldn't stop. It just hooked me. And that was about 2 years ago. And I've just been going ever since. And I've now made about 1,000 pieces.
Wow.
Yeah.
Now, so what kind of pieces do you make? Because you've got a pretty good range.
None of them have knots in them except to tie them off.
So you took care of that.
I took care of that because I still can't do that. But you can see over here, I make phone cases, straps to hold onto your phone case, glasses, chains, kind of like the one that you're wearing.
Yeah.
And then I have necklaces and bracelets and earrings, here bracelets, and all different colors. They're organized by the color of the rainbow. And then the colors that fall outside of the rainbow.
Right.
And I just string them. And I look at the beads and I put together based on what I'm looking at, what I think works. And sometimes I end up with something completely different and different color scheme than I started with. And sometimes it just works the first time. I was making something yesterday, and I knew I wanted to make it for the 4th of July. So it was red, white, and blue, and I ended up with 3 different red, white, and blue beads than I started with after going through probably 3 different incarnations.
Now, so as you're doing this, because it's interesting to me, I feel like the hand-eye coordination aspect of it may have been something that sparked something for your brain, or maybe not, but was looking into doing something like that also something that you felt like you needed to train your brain a little bit more, or was it helpful at all to get involved with doing something tactical like that?
It kind of just happened organically.
Okay.
And it was after I got over the hump of not being able to do the hand-eye coordination for anything more complicated.
Right.
So I had to take a step back because I found it, and still do find it, incredibly cathartic and calming. And I have my workshop in my closet, and my kids got me a little sign for the workshop that says Mimi's Workshop, established in 2023 or 2024, I don't even remember at this point. And I just go in there for sometimes hours, and I listen to my true crime podcast while I'm making jewelry. But I had to figure out how I could do it because I couldn't do it the way that so many other people seemed to make jewelry design the way to do it. So I had to find a way that I could do it for me. And that turned out to be just single strands and mixing and matching different beads, different colors, different textures, different materials.
So from there, what led to you deciding, okay, this is really cathartic. I'm now going to turn this into a business?
Well, I was spending a lot of money buying supplies. So I needed to figure out a way to be able to continue doing that. And I started just with friends and family. Before I made a website, I just have pictures of everything. And my kids encouraged me to make a website. And this is where the cognitive impairment came in. I would just stare. My website is on Squarespace, and they said it's really easy to follow. It's very user friendly, and it really just scrambled my brains. I couldn't, for the life of me, figure it out. I would start and get stuck for hours on how to get from step 1 to step 2. So my daughter built the template of the website, and then my husband had to build it out. And I still can't go back into the back end of it and do anything except upload the product.
Right.
Because that part of my brain just doesn't function the way it did before.
Right. Yeah.
So the support from my family has been critical in keeping this going.
Yeah.
I look at numbers now, and I kind of get when people say they're dyslexic, because I'll look at numbers and they just don't make any sense to me.
Wow.
I just look at them and can't add, subtract, do any kind of simple math just by looking at it.
So in with your business, as you've been pushing it forward, and this is a nonprofit, isn't it? Or it's
not.
You give back to the community.
I give back to the community.
Okay.
Yeah. So I've connected with a couple of different nonprofits over the last couple of years that I've known about for a really long time. One is called the Miracle Project,
Okay.
and it's a program for kids and young adults on the autism spectrum, from nonverbal to highly functioning, and kids with other physical limitations. They're supported by able-bodied people, and it's a musical theater program. So the program, along with the kids and young adults, write a musical of their own, and the highlight of every year is when they perform it.
Oh, wow.
And I'm a fan of musical theater, but nothing is like what these kids put together.
Wow.
And they do a lot of other programming during the year as well. And it is so helpful to these kids and young adults who have very limited other ways of expressing themselves. There was one young woman who started with the program when she was 11, and she's not nonverbal, but she doesn't speak much. And she would spend most of the time in the wings, watching or crying and being afraid of going out on stage. And after, I think it was a second show that I went to, this is after she'd been in the program for several years, she took question and answers from the audience at the end of the performance. And that did me in. I mean, I had already been a huge fan of the program. And when this young woman who was so painfully shy and unable to speak in front of people now performs in their musicals and takes questions from the audience, it's still hard to understand what she's saying, but that's so not the point.
Right.
And the other one is a music education nonprofit that my son is involved in. He's their global education ambassador. And they have classrooms in South Africa, Zambia, Mumbai, and here in Glendale, California. And they're stopping their expansion right now because they're focusing on hopefully performing with the cultural division of the Olympics in 2028.
Oh, wow.
And so they do cross-cultural, here's my music, here's my dance, and they do like mashups for the songs that are local to the country that they're in, and then mix it with a dance from the United States, and then they all meet on Zoom and perform them. And they were founded by a couple of the founding members of the Black Eyed Peas.
Oh, cool.
And Ralph Johnson, who's the drummer for Earth, Wind, and Fire, is one of their, what's the word?
Kind of sponsors or
He's a face.
face? Oh, okay. Yeah, he's the face of it.
Yeah.
Representative. There
Yes.
we go.
Thank you.
The writer here. Yeah, I'm really good at that.
Yeah, word finding is sometimes a problem. And I promise it's not just because I'm getting older, although that doesn't help.
Well, you've been doing that. So the choice to start this as a business, but also to give back, how did you make that choice?
My husband has been involved in the nonprofit world in Los Angeles in music education for almost 30 years. And so I've been really exposed to all kinds of different programs and organizations. And I had been in the corporate world. Even though some of the work I had done had been with nonprofits, it was still very public facing. I mean, the Emmys are, nobody thinks about that as being a nonprofit organization. They are, but nobody thinks about it that way. So I moved from the corporate world into the nonprofit world. Again, my career had been very organic, and many times I was the first person in the chair to do what I was doing, so I had a lot of flexibility to build out what I was doing, but it didn't really give me any kind of connection to the community and to feel like I was really giving back, although some of the students that I worked with were fantastic people who had never been on an airplane before.
Wow.
Coming to California to win a college Emmy was pretty amazing. And was more impressive to me than some of the bigger schools who were able to get grants from film companies and all, that sort of thing. These students from smaller universities that many people have never heard from before had to figure it out on their own. And convincing the members of the academy to consider that in their judging was a challenge for me, because excellence is not just because you got into a big film and TV school.
Yeah.
It was about using the resources that you had available to you as a student in a small town who, for whatever reason, didn't have the resources to reach out to these big film schools. And to me, they were the biggest successes. But then being involved in the music education world through my husband and my son was a real eye-opener about how my giving back to them could be really helpful, because my $200 or $500 donation was really something to their bottom line.
Yeah. It's interesting talking about the way that, having the limited resources and then jumping off and creating this amazing something that surpasses that, right? And it makes me think of, honestly, your jewelry and what you're doing and how you started this as this really cathartic thing and now it's grown. So how have you looked at scaling what is now your business, right? So how do you approach scaling this as a business?
That's really hard, because it's not kind of a special niche business that you can go out and say, I'm the only one doing this, or I had a great idea and I created Google or something like that.
That's true.
So it's basically been word of mouth. And I've had a lot of business from clients who have recommended me. I do custom work. I'm game day, school colors, holiday stuff, that I make specific. So I have, around any holiday, I promote coming up are my Halloween items,
Right.
or my New Year's, or my Christmas, or my Kwanzaa, or
Yeah.
my Easter, or Valentine's. And so I do a lot more business around the holidays. I participate in, it's funny, my kids who are grown and have their own kids now, their elementary school does a holiday boutique every year, which is another way I'm able
Oh,
to
yeah.
give back.
Yeah.
So I go to the holiday boutique, and which is after the kids' holiday program, which is kind of a kick in the pants, thinking back and looking at these little kids and knowing that they used to be my kids.
Yeah.
And they're the ones who come and buy from me. So I have to really reduce my prices because they come with like $12.
Yeah.
And they're anxious to buy stuff. So I can make as much at a show selling to these young people in kindergarten through sixth grade, selling a piece for $2 or $5 as I do at a show where I don't kick my prices down,
Yeah.
but I sell far fewer pieces and I end up making the same amount
Yeah.
at the end of the day.
About how many shows do you do a year? I mean,
3 or 4.
3 or 4?
I'm finding that even though I might be the only jewelry vendor there, people have so much less discretionary income now that it's really hard even at those shows. I'm not the only one there who's having a hard time
Right.
selling. I mean, and especially now, people
Yeah.
just have all their money is going into filling their tanks or buying groceries.
Yeah.
So a $25 necklace is not discretionary anymore.
Right. Do you find that, what's the balance between how you sell at shows and how you sell online? Like, do you find that you're selling more online? Is there more of
Yeah,
a
I've done a lot more business online.
Right.
It's been sadly really slow for the last couple of months since certain events of February happened.
Yes.
Nobody's looking to spend money anymore, which surprised me at Christmas that I did the business that I did at all.
Wow.
But looking forward, I am working with a couple of friends to better organize what I have and revamp my website. And working with somebody who does a little bit more social media and digital marketing so I can work with search engine optimization and work with her to understand what I don't know about how to have keywords and videos and things like that that can help trigger, maybe something will go viral and more people will come to my site and buy jewelry. I've come really close to breaking even on my investment. It's taken probably 3 years and not a huge, investment to begin with. I probably spent between $4,000 and $5,000
Got it.
over the cumulative buying supplies, participating in shows, making my donations, mailing jewelry out. In fact, you were one of my first big customers.
I feel very fortunate about that. La, la, la. Very pretty. Well, I mean, you're bootstrapping. You're what they call bootstrapping because it's all you,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
And you're the investor. You're the funder.
yes.
Okay, so would you consider having a partner? I mean, besides the people that are helping you here and there, but would you consider having like an actual partner that's helping you, like truly, made by Mimi, by Debbie Slavkin, and
Sure.
yeah?
Yeah.
Okay.
Any way that can sort of feed my addiction to sitting by myself in a closet, just creating.
Yeah. Yeah. So why is it made by Mimi? Where it's behind the name.
Well, when my first grandson, who just turned 6, started talking, I wanted to be Grand Debbie.
Okay.
Because my dad was Grand Bobby.
Okay.
And I wanted to honor his memory by taking a page out of his book. And Noah couldn't say Grand Debbie. It came out somehow Mimi. And it just stuck. And I asked a friend of mine who's a speech pathologist, how does Mimi come out as Grand Debbie?
Yeah.
And she said, I can't answer that. I don't know. Because he called my husband, who is grandpa, Baka for a long time. And that made more sense. It kind of like flowed. Grandpa came out Baka with a newly speaking 1-year-old.
Right.
But that morphed back into grandpa. But
Okay.
Mimi just kind of stuck. So it's a tribute to I now have 5 grandchildren, 6 and under. And so it's Made with Love by Mimi was how it started. And then in building my website, Made by Mimi Designs just seemed like a better, easier catchphrase for my website.
That's cool. That's really cool. Now you've got the collections which are like the Halloween themed, and do you find that and I know you said that those tend to do better. Does it connect with the customer base a little bit more, or is that a response to maybe some of the customers that you have, like the custom designs that you do? Do you do custom design collections as well?
I'm happy to. I mean, one of the things that I talk about doing is for bridal parties, for the bridal gift to her bridal party, or it would be great, like, to get to a school, a graduate, undergraduate, elementary schools who have colors, local high schools, to make keychains out of the school colors. I haven't been able to do that yet because, as we've established, it's just me.
Yeah.
And I can only do so much.
Right.
Outside of the focus of making the pieces, it's hard for me to do the big picture thinking that I used to be able to do.
Yeah.
And to have the capacity to just make a bunch of phone calls. I tried that one year just to participate in holiday programs at different temples. And it just got to be too overwhelming for me to be able to
Right.
follow up on that.
Right. Do you find that your experience in entertainment and the corporate world helps you as you have to go out there and sell yourself and sell your wares?
It helps me because in the recesses of my brain, I know how to do that.
Yeah.
I mean, I spent 15 years selling. More than that, if I consider my whole career and everything that I've done, there's always been some kind of component where I have to sell an idea or sell a product or sell a television show. So as much as selling ads for a program for the college Emmys, there's always been a component of that. And so now I'm selling myself, which I never really did so directly before, but it's always been about just me and my personality and my gift for gab, which has fortunately returned.
Yes. Yeah. Do you, I know that your healing journey, creativity as part of that has been very helpful. Can you speak a little bit to your belief in the value of creativity for emotional well-being and supporting wellness?
That is definitely something that I've seen in my years being around music education and kids and schools and programs that are designed specifically for K-12. Everything from big festivals for kids with disabilities to working with Holocaust survivors and retelling their stories to regular straight up musical theater that my kids were involved in when they were in high school, and jazz band, and seeing how lit up these young people get when they're creating whatever it might be from the list that I just gave you, and how they may or may not be good at regular standard book smart education, but how much they light up when they get to create. And I now have that feeling for myself from my own creation. And it really is separate from what you traditionally think of as education. I was a lousy student. I got the grades, so I must be some kind of genius without realizing it. And this was a long, long time ago when education was much more straightforward than it is now. When I went to high school, there were no AP classes. Not that I would have taken them if they had them, but they didn't. And I was just bored. So I figured out how to get through school by being scrappy street smart, and how I could get through by talking my way through as opposed to buckling down and studying. In college, it was like, I have to get creative because I can't do this the way they want me to do. It's just, you're not going to make it in this world by being in a journalism school and doing their journalism.
Right.
Because they don't teach you how to succeed in the real world. So when it came to writing a term paper versus presenting a stand-up kind of lecture, I would do that because I could interview one or two or three people, and I did this in my introduction to journalism class, medical reporters, and get up and explain to the class of, I don't know, 500 how to get involved in journalism by talking with journalists and the way they do things. And I just happened to be able to get to, at the time, the medical reporter for Channel 2 News and some other people and just talk about it. Instead of spending hours and hours and hours writing a paper that was never going to see the light of day to anybody except the teacher.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I've fallen back in some way on some kind of creativity since I was in second grade.
And it's probably helped you tremendously.
It has.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
then helped you get, through these unique patches
Yes.
of time.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's like people have said when they're talking about education in general that arts education is a fundamental to the way kids learn and is not always embraced and the funding is not always there. But when you speak to kids on a level that reaches them in an inherent fundamental, I understand that and I want to do that kind of way, it opens them up to more traditional learning.
Yeah. Yeah. It's so interesting. Earlier today we were speaking regarding that, the value of art and how important it is.
Yeah.
On pretty much every level.
Yeah.
So what's next for Made by Mimi Designs?
Well, you suggested the idea of maybe finding a partner to come on board.
Wow, who knew that this was going to be a business class for Debbie? This is so perfect.
Yes. Like I said, I'm going to be working with a friend to punch up my website and make it a little bit more professional. I don't have any experience in photography and web design, which is good that the website that I'm using is, I understand it now, and I'm going to figure out better ways to incorporate some of the media that I've done over the last couple of years. It's there, but it's hard to really see it for what it is, and take more professional pictures and do some more creative, maybe in my workshop while I'm making a piece and talk about what goes into making a piece, and just try to figure out how I could make my website more effective, because that's the way that's more efficient for me. I mean, going to a show at a school or at a mall or at an event is a way for me to get out of the house and be social, but oftentimes I've found that people are there to be social and aren't really there to buy.
Right, right. I'm curious about, with this, You know, the maker space is such an interesting world, and as you've entered that space, what have you discovered about it, and what have you discovered about yourself as being part of this handmade world, and you know, the jewelry making, and um, it seems like a pretty unique area.
It is and it isn't. I
Okay.
mean, it's very saturated.
Mm-hmm.
There's a supplier that I get supplies from that focuses, and actually it's here. I don't know how well you can see the guitar
Oh, okay.
and
Oh, and the
in the
musical
musical
instruments. Uh huh.
stuff. They have that. They have Pride. They have Ukraine. They have all kinds of pieces that are social justice oriented.
Mm-hmm.
They also have a lot of underground kind of beads
Mm-hmm.
that just I don't get. But
Mm-hmm.
that's, I think, because I'm too old.
Yeah.
But I like finding suppliers who are that kind of
Yeah.
niche, that I can incorporate what they do into what I do,
Mm-hmm.
and
Kind of
se-
unique kind of stuff.
and unique
Yeah.
stuff. With the traditional beads that I get, it's just finding a unique way to make pieces that are appealing. There are a lot of people who do the same kind of thing with a color scheme or with beads that aren't as eclectic as what I have. So
Mm-hmm.
what I have, I think, is more universal and can reach a lot more people. But again, I have to figure out a way to make that more evident
Yeah.
in what I sell. I've made a lot of custom pieces for people who want Dodgers or Chiefs or Lakers, different sports bracelets and keychains and things like that. And I'd like to be able to do more of that.
Mm-hmm.
Or name
Right.
bracelets
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
with grandkids' names or kids' names, that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I just kind of do it all. And if it doesn't speak to me in a personal way when I'm making it, it doesn't really give me the kind of peace that I want
Mm-hmm.
out of doing it.
Yeah. Well, it's kind of like how, you know, when you're having a business based on creativity and art, that's your passion.
Yeah,
So if it doesn't continue to feed the passion, then it becomes like a job,
right.
which then is counterproductive to the art.
Exactly. Which is why it's been a struggle for me to do more than maintaining a very basic website
Mm-hmm.
and just making it.
Yeah. Which is why getting the help is probably a
Yeah,
good idea.
yeah.
As you were through your recovery, and for folks that may have experienced the same thing, and dealing with the brain injury, but kind of coming back from all of that, what kind of support did you have beyond your family and all of that? But what kind of support did you have, and do you know of other kind of avenues of support that you might recommend for others out there?
The hard part of that is that, as I said earlier, when you have a brain injury, it's really hard for people to understand that there's
Yeah.
something wrong. I have a psychiatrist and a therapist. The psychiatrist has changed over the years,
Mm-hmm.
but that kind of support with antidepressants and anti-anxiety to help me through the PTSD and that sort of thing was really important. And I'm a big fan of getting mental health support.
Right.
I don't hide from it. The more involved I get with my therapist and the world of psychiatry, and I'm a big supporter of Western
Mm-hmm.
medication.
Mm-hmm.
I've tried homeopathic. For me, it doesn't work. But it's been a struggle because it's a lot harder I think, not ever having been a man, but being a woman trying to get people to listen to me and understand that my issues are real and legitimate because I look fine, has been an uphill battle. So self-advocacy has been the most important for me in my healing, and finding the right providers to help me get there. I interviewed a half a dozen therapists before I found the right one to work with. And I've now been with her for 5 years. And I just recently got a new psychiatrist, and I had to go through. I was reluctant to find somebody new because I've been working with this one for 20 years.
Wow.
And I just got, I think, to be with him, just wrote. She's going to come in, she's going to tell me what's going on, I'm going to adjust her medication, and that's going to be it. Without looking at me as a whole individual and the other issues that I've had that have affected my brain chemistry from other medical issues that I've had. And I found this one woman who listened to everything that I had to say and my whole history, and she wrapped me up in a nice little bow and said, you have treatment-resistant depression because you had this, and because you had this, and because you had this. So, of course, what's been going on hasn't been as effective as you want to be. And I understand that stable isn't enough for you and that you want to be better. So let's figure out how we can do that together.
It's something, isn't it? That whole idea of it's not, mental health is very delicate, and it's not a one and done. It's very rarely a one and done.
Right.
Where you, the first time you find that therapist, or the first time you find this, it's the same with, my dad was an alcoholic, so we would do Al-Anon and all that, and you wouldn't just find the perfect Al-Anon right away.
Right.
You would have to try different things and find different ways, the group that suited you. And in the course of the time that you were even doing this, did you look at support groups, or did you focus more on just individual care?
I had an episode where I ended up being in an outpatient treatment program that was group oriented, and I found that I was much more comfortable being sort of almost a co-leader with the professional provider, because I've always been one who's been more interested in helping others than in helping myself directly. I don't know if that's a mom thing or a woman thing or what it might be.
Or a Debbie thing.
Or a Debbie thing. But by helping other people talk about their issues, it made me feel more complete.
Do you have anything else you would like to share? Any final thoughts?
I just hope that people who are watching and or listening to this can understand that, especially if you go through health challenges, and I've had other health challenges that compounded the negative effects of the traumatic brain injury that I've had to work with. But I just hope that people who are struggling, especially women who struggle with depression and self-worth issues, can recognize that if they find their own creative outlet, whatever it might be, clay, making jewelry, making candles, writing, doing poetry, whatever it may be, that they should stick with it for the passion of it, not for the idea of making a business out of it. For me, that's been secondary, and only because I need to feed the beast to be able to keep doing it.
Yeah. That's a really unique and kind of beautiful point of, I am making this a business because I need it to be something I can continue to do.
Exactly.
Wow. That's pretty cool, Debbie. Okay, so we're going to do your biscuit minute.
Okay.
You ready?
I think so.
Okay.
It's really important when you find your outlet, whatever it may be, to focus just on that. And for me, it was jewelry making. So I would go online or to stores and look for the beads, the colors, the material that spoke to me so that I could take it back and use my own instincts to be creative in sitting down and making the end product that I'm proud of.
What did you want to be when you grew up?
So many things.
You can list five.
I
your
wanted
top
to be a
five.
doctor. I wanted to be an astronaut, but I realized that I had to know too much math to be able to do either of those two things and go to school for too long. I wanted to always do something with people.
Oh, that's cool.
And I've been fortunate that pretty much everything I've done in my career has been people oriented.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. Okay, what always makes you smile?
My grandchildren.
I knew you were going to say that. I like that. That's very cool.
It's the best club in the world. I love my kids, and I will always love my kids. And I am so grateful to them for giving me these small humans who are so pure and so unscathed by what's going on in the world, that being with them is being in a little capsule of cashmere where nothing can break in and ruin what's going on.
Oh, wow. That's lovely. What do you know now as an adult that you wish you knew as a kid?
Trust your gut. It's not about what you know. It's the old adage. It's not about what you know. It's not about who you know. It's about what you know. And the more you can incorporate that into who you know is the way that you get your tentacles out into the world to become a success at whatever it is that you're doing. But trust your gut to do what you want to do.
Okay.
There's a line from a
Yeah.
Billy Joel song.
Okay.
Do what's good for you, or you're not good for anybody.
That's so true. Oh, man. Gotta remember that. Okay. Thank you for that. What's your guilty pleasure?
Traveling.
Yeah.
I love to travel. My youngest son lives in Spain, and I go visit him once a year. I finally, after being married for over 40 years, gotten my husband a little bit bitten by the travel bug. I mean, I spent so much time traveling by myself when I was selling television programming that I used that also as kind of an escape. I would go into a hotel room and close the door and be alone, which was rare raising three kids.
Yeah.
But whenever I have the opportunity to travel, especially since I have to travel to see my grandkids, I just love doing that and being places that I haven't been before.
Okay. And cat or dog?
Dog.
I know. I know. Just so for the record, I dog sat one of your Newfoundlands, which
Yep.
was the most fun ever because that giant lug of a yummy number. That was just. Whew.
Yeah.
Do you guys have a dog? You don't have,
I
do you have a dog now?
Yeah, I have a dog. A rescue. She's a Husky Shepherd mix. And she just turned 9. And she's the sweetest creature, separate from my grandchildren.
Of course she is. But you know, they're a kin. I get it.
Dogs are, they get you.
Yeah. Yeah, they do.
Yeah.
They do. It's really true.
And she's a huge source of comfort.
Yeah. Does she hang with you when you're doing your jewelry?
She does. She sits right outside the closet on the carpet and just hangs out. And every now and then she'll come and beg me for a treat or attention. And then she'll go back to sitting on the floor and just hanging with me.
Nice. Really nice. Well, Debbie, this has been great.
Thank
for
you.
sharing and for really sharing the depth of what you've been through and how you've gotten on the other side and still growing with it.
I'm a work in progress.
Yeah.
My website, in case anybody's interested, is madebymimidesigns.com, just like it sounds. Mimi is M-I-M-I.
Yep. Yeah.
And reach out with questions or design ideas or gift ideas. It's just me. I'm responsive within about 10 minutes to most
Cool.
inquiries, and I'd love to get to know people.
That's great. Well, perfect. Well, and with that, we're going to say goodbye. But please, really, the link is in the description below for Debbie's website. Please check it out. The jewelry is wonderful, and she will work with you, truly, to create custom pieces. And as she mentioned, she does love working with people. And so you'll discover an engagement that really does talk about getting you, because her pieces will definitely represent who you are and the people that you want to gift with her pieces. So once again, we thank you so much for joining us for F5 Collective Presents Women in Business, and for meeting Debbie Slavkin and learning more about this business that is starting off. And we hope that we'll see you next time. Thanks, everybody.